Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Tuesday, October 8th, 2024, and today the topic is sketching the bones of the hands. So if you are returning, welcome back. If you're new, I'm going to set a 5-minute timer. I do daily sketches, the hands, and it's definitely a journey, not a destination here. It's a daily journey. So with that said, I wanted to go over before we start sketching. So I did a community post that has a more correct drawing of the hip bones and area right here. Because for some reason I just forgot how they worked. And plus, one of the main things that I do is sketch from imagination, but I also do studies. And then speaking of studies, that's what I'll usually do is whatever it is I'm gonna sketch or talk about in a video, I'll usually, so for example, like today, I'll usually just take some notes, but then I'm not like trying to be perfect at anatomy. This is all for the purposes of basically drawing comics or illustrations or character design and stuff like that, and just getting better at drawing, and then also using sketching as like a way of getting better at drawing. Also, I did these 1-minute poses from reference that I did a short video if you want to check that out. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick update. So for today's topic, it may take a while. I definitely don't want to rush. I think the hands are interesting. I think they are complex. There's 2 of them, so they all do, and there's fingers. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So we'll start with kind of what I've already gone over. So I'll post a link to another video that's, I may have 1 or 2, not sure. I know I've done a video about sketching the hands, but this month, because it's October and I'm focusing on skeletons, yeah, we'll talk more about the bones. So we've talked about, I like to kind of get warmed up, and let me start a 5-minute timer, like I said. So just to kind of get warmed up and get in the mode of sketching, we've talked about, so proportions is like the main thing that we talked about. So we've talked about the torso, which I like to set up kind of like this to kind of know where the collar, the hips. We talked about the ribs, rib cage, kind of like that. The hips, like I mentioned, which kind of has like this shape. That's why anatomy isn't, you don't need to know every single bit of anatomy, although it's what's giving it like the shapes. So it's good to know up to a certain point. It can kind of get in the way too, honestly. But yeah, so we talked about the hips, we talked about the legs, the leg bones. So check out those videos if you want. We haven't talked about the feet and the hands, and we talked about the skull. Can't tell if that's in the camera here. And we went over the skull. We went over the arms, I think, hopefully. So yeah, today we'll talk about the hands here. Just wanted to get warmed up and also set down some basic proportions. So this is the basic mannequin. I'm not trying to be too realistic with this. You can adjust it to be more realistic or more stylized. So the idea behind this is because I'm wanting to draw from imagination, and I'd rather have something simpler and more stylized that could be more cartoony or realistic depending on what I want. So yeah, so this is the basic proportions. Oops, okay, here we go. But like I said, it'll take a little time because it's never good to rush a drawing, and also when you're wanting to understand something. So let's zoom in on this for right now. So that would be something kind of like this, where I like to place the shoulder joint, we'll just call it that. These are not correct anatomical terms, but they work for drawing purposes. And just for simplicity's sake, I just go about equal distance. Maybe this is a little bit shorter, I don't know. It's alright. Equal is pretty good. And I say that because, again, this is not meant to be a scientific anatomical study. It's for the purposes of drawing, and you're going to make adjustments anyway depending on the character. And so that means the hands, when they're kind of out like this, I mentioned in another video, it's kind of good to get used to kind of just come up with your own. What I like is, if this is half, like right here, then let's say that the hand, like the smaller unit, would be like a third, meaning whatever this is could be whatever this is, like the third, if that makes sense. Again, this is just kind of a quick way to draw your own poses and your own characters. So that's 5 minutes. But also, if you're drawing from reference, or if you're drawing from life, if you're doing studies, it helps. So for example, when I did these minute sketches, you only have 1 minute to draw the whole figure. And that's basically what's going through my mind, is where's the halfway mark, where's the 1/3 mark, etc., etc. So it's just a way of dividing the proportions real quick. And you can exaggerate it, but it's good to know what you're doing. It's good to know like what you're exaggerating. So yeah, the hands are not half. So then, now that we did that, let's zoom in on this, and let's break this down. So if this is the elbow, and then we'll say that this is like the wrist area is made up of several bones in this area. So we said that the hand is about like, I mean, the cool thing is you can just use your own hand as reference. So it's like my outstretched hand is about half of this. Again, it's like about, but so whatever this is, we'll do this again. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, it's kind of like that. It's smaller than the forearm, but actually like longer than you would think it was if it's stretched out. Sometimes it might seem smaller because your hand isn't stretched out by default. It curls in like this. So yeah, let's work on this, on the proportions when it is stretched out. So this right here is a good kind of shortcut for the wrist area. So that outer, so if the hand is, if you're looking at the top of the hand, the bones of the forearms, there's two of them. So the side with the thumb will make it this side. So I believe that's called the radialis, but that's that's the thumb. So that's the bone that you tend to see on the pinky side. And again, you can just kind of think of what I'm saying as tips, but you can look up your own reference and also look at your own hand. So that's the best teacher. So this one I notice is elevated. It comes up. And then, so this area here, it's basically more like this. It's more accurate. So don't quote me on this, but I believe this is the tarsals, and then the ones that are in the hand itself, like the palm and stuff, that's the metatarsals. I'm not perfectly sure, but that sounds right. So from there, here's some like tricky things. So let's figure out the proportions first. So we said that this is the outstretched. Let me make sure that's correct. Yeah, it's about correct. So outstretched, and then, but then within the hand itself, it looks like there's a halfway mark here. And so you get this measurement, this proportion, like that. And I'm using the middle finger because it looks like that's the, so that's 5 minutes. That looks like it's in the middle, hence the middle finger. So yeah, seems about, that's the halfway mark of the hand itself. So this part, the tarsals, I think, but I'll just call it the wrist. So that's where it starts. That's where it connects. And so of course you've got, so we're saying this is the thumb. So you've got this one, this one, this one, and then the thumb itself. And so they all originate from there. So I think these are the metatarsals. So they all originate from the wrist area, but their proportions is what changes. So then you get to the knuckles. So they're kind of, they're not straight across. And then the two big ones are going to be the middle and the index. The two big ones, and then these kind of blend. Again, these are, I'm looking at my own hand to, it's, I haven't really studied it, but it's good to study it. And then of course you have, so the thumb can be tricky. So it starts here. And then that first part right here, you'll have the thumb. And then that's the first part, the second part, or joint. And then when it's just flat, so we said that this is the middle finger here. Let's figure out like these joints. So that is about half. So halfway here is you have this part. You have that joint. So 1, 2, 3, and then the tip, fingertip. And then it's kind of a, I mean, I'm sure my hands look different than some other hands. They're all kind of different, but generally speaking, it's about equal right here. But yeah, it has this curve to it. So that's one way to do that. To think about the bones, and then like that, giving it the finger here, and then I guess the fingertips are all different. I mean, my ring finger is a little bit longer, so and then the pinky lines up, mine anyway, lines up with, so then there's a arch to that. So yeah, make your own studies. Plus I'm sure your fingers look different than mine, and you also have your own reference built in. As far as like the thumb, when I line it up, the tip of the thumb comes up to, which is kind of weird, comes up to right here. Wonder why. So it's just like, this is when I'm pressing it up against the, so it's actually right here. So yeah, I would recommend just kind of doing your own studies and seeing, because I know that hands look different, but I think that's generally correct. That's another 5 minutes. I'll start another one. It may be a longish video, I don't know. I mean, I'll fill up this sketch page, and just speaking of that, it's pretty thin paper. You can kind of see through it, but I don't mind it. It's all right for these studies. So yeah, this was interesting. But yeah, do your own studies on that. I'll keep playing around with it. Let's take this, and now let's like spread the fingers and see what happens. So I'm gonna flip it around because it's easier to see since I'm using my hand as a reference. So now let's take just the hand and create this proportion with it. And so we said that it's basically halfway, and that's like the middle finger area, and this would be like the wrist area. So yeah, the metatarsals, so they connect right here, that one, then like the thumb. So it's just kind of like this group right here. And then you get your knuckles. So these are kind of big, and then this kind of blends in. Maybe my knuckles are big because I popped them. So yeah, you get this. And then as far as proportions, like for example, we said that this is about half. Like if you measure this, it's about halfway. And we said that half of that, again, half again. So this is the second wrinkly knuckles. And then let's see. It looks like whatever distance the finger is right here is about the distance wide. So you can kind of estimate it's about like that wide from the middle. So there's a squarishness to it. Again, these are just some, like, obviously if you do your own studies, you'll see. And then the thumb is very mobile. So in this sort of neutral position, I reach the knuckle here. So that would be the equivalent of these knuckles. And then it kind of lines, okay, so from here, you have like the curve right here. So, and then as far as where the fingertips actually go, so to me, again, everybody kind of has their own way of drawing, but it helps to know this. It helps to know the first set, like the knuckles. I mean, I guess these are the first knuckles. And then it helps to kind of know where this goes, like the proportion there. Because if I were to measure like the index finger, it just seems like they're always half. But then this sort of determines the length. But then it's like another one. So it's these are the different lengths right here. That's 5 minutes. I'll start another one. So once you know like this, then you know that it's basically another one. Basically. Again, all hands are different. And then once you get that far, then the tip is basically, it's a third. So it's not half. The tip isn't half of it. So like, it's actually like a third of it. Since we're drawing bones, let's keep it kind of skeletal here. So it's not exactly half to get to the fingertip. At least on my hands. From what I can tell. And then for the thumb, it looks like this distance is the same as that part. However, the thumb itself is about half the tip. Again, these are meant to be reminders, like helpful. So that when you are drawing the hand, like doing stuff, it'll help out. Now, I could be wrong later on because I'll usually just kind of like review some of the stuff that I'm talking about, and like the hips being incorrect. I mean, the proportions are usually okay. So yeah, we won't go into like all the muscles and the veins and stuff, but this is the kind of the bones of the hands. The other thing is, let's talk about like, the different angles. So one thing I was interested in was how the knuckles look like when you're looking at them like from the front. So let's just take the idea of the bones here, and you'll notice, or I'll notice as I'm looking at my own hand, that so let's set up some proportions. Let's say that this is the width. So yeah, I'm looking at the hand from the front. It looks like, first of all, there's curvature, and then the middle comes up the highest. So there is a curvature to it. And it's the most angular. And then this one, the index finger, is kind of prominent. And then the ring finger and then the pinky kind of blends on my hand. And then, so that's what these are. And then for these knuckles, it looks like there's still the curvature, but now it's more of a rounded form. And then for the fingertip, we sort of combine a lot of times when we're drawing, or like when the hand is just doing stuff, the fingertips aren't necessarily curving, and it uses more muscles to do that. But like from this view, it's about whatever distance that is, but maybe a little bit longer, meaning from like the knuckle to the fingertip. And there seems to be like that kind of look to it. And then the fingertips themselves are kind of squarish more than round, like this part. They actually look more square than you would think. So that's 5 minutes. I'll start another one. And then the roundness is more like on the fingernail area. Kind of has the roundedness to it. So hopefully that's helpful. It's helping me out. As far as like the thumb, so just from the pose that I have the hand in, so I'll link some other videos, and they're helpful. And even though I can draw the hand for the most part, it's good to know this to, one, make it look better, but then also if you are going to draw characters from imagination a lot, then it's good to know, not get hung up on the hands. But with that said, so then it's good to identify these knuckles. So the thumb kind of squares off right here at that kind of angle. And I know that we were sort of concentrating on the bones, but I think in foreshortened, it's probably easier to think of the forms. And then, yeah, like the thumb can, when it's foreshortened, it can just be a cylinder. So basically in the videos I'm gonna link, it was just to get used to drawing the hand, and then now we're sort of analyzing why it looks the way it looks. So I'm not really gonna play around with like the palm of the hand and stuff, because a lot of that is, well, if you want to think about like where the muscles are, at least in this angle, it kind of starts right here for the thumb, and then the wrist, the tarsal bones. So yeah, it's kind of like that. That's not that correct, is it? I'll need to work on that. But it could be good to just do this and then figure out what the bones are doing. It's kind of interesting. So I'll probably wrap this up. I wanted to go over like how to, well, one, pose the hand, just one, kind of just kind of think about like what we went over as far as like the skeleton, and just kind of create your own understanding of it. And that's really the best way to figure it out for yourself. That kind of thing. So do that, and then I wanted like the hands to interact. So for example, like I know how to kind of get like the gesture of the hand, so it's good to sort of play around with that. Like if you had that kind of thing. Play around with like the gesture, but then figure out the like why it looks like that. Same with like fingers. Could be a good exercise to figure out how the fingers would intertwine. So that's another 5 minutes. So that could be a good thing to play with. I like to see if I can figure it out, and then just again based on studies, and then like look it up. And then relate it back to what I'm working on here. Kind of an interesting pose. And then once I look up the reference and do studies, then I'll come back and see if I can draw it myself in different poses. So yeah, play around with that. Hopefully that helped you out. Before I sign off, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for supporting the channel. Really appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.